Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. I hope the weekend was good. It's the chilly season here in Nairobi. It's very pleasant but quite cool at night. But then when you look at the temperature and you think of what cool really is, it's not that cool. Macro thoughts. This photograph caught my attention. It's by Corbis, and I just put a tagline, "The Markets?" ? My piece over the weekend is about whether the UK will exit the European Union, Brexit. Prime Minister David Cameron, who pulled off a stunning general election win in 2015 and the first outright parliamentary majority since 1992, when all the pollsters predicted a hung parliament, promised a Europe in-out vote in 2013. He said then, "It is time for the British people to have their say. It is time to settle this European question in British politics." At that time, he was trying to pacify some of his own MPs and fend off the UKIP challenge. Margaret Thatcher, who was a totemic leader of the Conservative Party and was fond of swinging her handbag in negotiations with recalcitrant Europeans, never called a referendum in this matter, for good reason. Therefore, whilst this vote is laudable in putting the question squarely in front of the British people, it was always plain risky politically. The Brexit vote on June 23rd and the Donald Trump candidacy, Hillary Clinton, did surge last week and administered a brutal slapdown with her tweet to Donald Trump to delete the account, are what I would term event risk correlated. This was, of course, I wrote this early morning yesterday before the news came out of Florida. A terrorist attack in the US in the run-up to the presidential vote would give Donald Trump huge traction. It might well put him over the top. Similarly, something in Europe or the UK in the run-up to the referendum could do the same. The latest polls released on Friday had Brexit running 10 points ahead and sent the pound into a tailspin. Sterling volatility has spiked to a 7-year high. Polls are notoriously fickle, and savvy investors tend to give more credence to prediction markets. Prediction markets have Brexit at 30%, 33% this morning actually, and the Remain vote at 67%. Prediction markets are based on the weight of money, whereas polls are not. The markets are now faced with 2 weeks of uncertainty, and then the question arises, what happens if the UK does exit the European Union? Modelling that scenario is not easy, and that is why volatility has spiked. I am of the view that if the UK exits, sterling will fall. In near term, we might witness unprecedented volatility. But then, after things calm down, the UK might well boom. A cheap currency will crowd international investors in. The doomsday scenario is not credible. And it is exactly because this doomsday scenario is not resonating that makes me inclined to the view that the prediction markets are underplaying the risks of a Brexit. What is resonating more is an apocalyptic view of a dystopian future where Little England is simply overrun by immigrants from all over the world. If Prime Minister Cameron can pull this rabbit out of the hat, it will be a famous political victory. It really will. In the event of a Brexit, we could see the pound trade as low as 125 versus the dollar. Home thoughts. I like this photograph taken of Westminster Abbey. I actually attended Westminster School and we had to attend a service every morning in the Abbey. I did enjoy it. I went back to Albert Camus, The Stranger. Mother died today, or maybe yesterday. I can't be sure. I knew that I had shattered the harmony of the day, the exceptional silence of a beach where I'd been happy. Then I fired 4 more times at the motionless body where the bullets lodged without leaving a trace. And it was like knocking 4 quick times on the door of unhappiness. Political reflections, well, it's been the worst attack in US history. This is the Pulse nightclub in Florida. The shooter at the Orlando nightclub was named as Omar Mateen, 29, of Florida. Put up a photograph of the scene, killed at least 50 people. At least 53 others had been taken to nearby hospitals. Club posted on its Facebook page, "Everyone get out and keep running." That took me to something I wrote in April 2013, The Brothers Tsarnaev and the Long Tail. I said there are more than 7 billion of us now in this 21st century world of ours, and therefore the long tail in a population of 7 billion is not an insignificant absolute number. In statistics, a long tail of some distributions of numbers is the portion of the distribution having a large number of occurrences far from the head or central part of the distribution. Put in a different way, there are surely many brothers Tsarnaev in this new 21st century of ours. And whilst I appreciate Osama bin Laden as being nibbled by the fishes somewhere in the ocean, he basically inspired the likes of the brothers Tsarnaev, i.e. those disaffected with the 21st century. In truth, that disaffection might have any number of reasons, and I'm reminded of my French O-level, where I studied Albert Camus' L'Étranger. Camus said, "The Byronic hero incapable of love, or capable only of an impossible love, suffers endlessly. He is solitary, languid, his condition exhausts him. If he wants to feel alive, it must be in the terrible exaltation of a brief and destructive action." Don't get me wrong, I do not think any of these folks are Byronic, not by a long shot. Donald Trump tweeted, "What has happened in Orlando is just the beginning. Our leadership is weak and ineffective. I called it and asked for the ban. It must be tough." This goes back to what I was writing. Brexit vote on June 23rd and the Donald Trump candidacy are what I would term event risk correlated. That's why I couldn't hold back. Brexit vote on June 23rd and the Donald Trump candidacy, though Hillary Clinton did surge last week and administered a brutal slapdown when she said delete the account, are event risk correlated. Trump, I appreciate the congratulations for being right on radical Islamic terrorism. I don't want congrats. I want toughness and vigilance, he said. The New Yorker says, with every month it has become clearer that Trump is a makeshift politician whose rancid wit resides in his willingness to say whatever it takes to arouse the fears of a political base. The horror in Orlando was unspeakable, and we will learn much more about it in the days ahead. But today the event was made that much worse by a presidential candidate who seeks to lead the country in complicated times and in its darker moments with self-aggrandizing tweets and hollow words. Premier Li says China and Germany should expand common interests as he dines with Merkel in the Summer Palace in China. I saw this tweet by Emily Jane Odell. The peace I felt at Saida Zainab's shrine is a distant memory. Another deadly blast, but she posted this photograph of the shrine. And then Samuel Patrick, double bomb attack outside the Saida Zainab shrine. It's been attacked numerous times. Prince Philip turned 95 on Friday. He has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years, says the Queen. There was a national service of Thanksgiving to mark Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday. This was the photograph from that. It's about 9,725 kilometers from the beach in South Africa where the cowling was found to Kangaroo Island. Drift modelling published last year by the Australian government scientists suggested ocean currents could have taken plane debris both east and west of the searched zone depending upon the exact latitude. From the centre of the search zone, the most common drift direction is west towards Reunion Island, where the first piece of MH370 was found in July 2015. South of the search zone, most trajectories head east to Australia and New Zealand, the map showed. Separately, a piece of possible plane debris was also found in Madagascar. Wrote about this when I said the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of MH370. I was playing on this arrhythmic normal in the world and in the markets. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro dollar 112.59, dollar index 94.61, Japanese yen 106.13, Swissy 0.9645, the pound all over the shop 141.82 but looking very wobbly. Aussie 0.7395, India rupee 67.005, South Korean won 11.7228, the real, which has been firm since the toppling of Dilma Rousseff, 341.96, Egyptian pound 8.8822, and the rand 15.2385. EU referendum, sterling falls after independent poll puts Brexit 10 points ahead. But bear in mind, the polls are sampling only about 2,000 people, whereas weight of money, people are putting their money where their mouth is. Brexit chill starts to be felt. Look at this volatility chart. Volatility has gone through the roof. Sterling, I'll put up a 1 month chart. Last trading 141.81. My target is back to that 136.50 target I had from a while back. Nikkei ended down 3.5%, biggest percentage drop since April 28, as the yen strengthened, and the yen just above 106. Japan's 10-year yields just hit fresh historic low at minus 0.17% on flight to safety. Gold 1280.60. If Brexit is a go, we could see 1400, I'm afraid. Last year's oil price rally ran out of steam in early May after 112 days. This year's has already lasted longer, 140 days so far. And saying that on Friday, Brent's front month settled $1.41 down at $50.54, losing 2.7% for its largest drop in a month. Similar story for WTI, largest slide since early April. We're seeing some follow-on losses, but trying to stabilize around these levels. I put up a 5-day chart. I think it's finally topped out, but boy, it's been a long journey to this point. Emerging markets, we want food. Looting and riots rock Venezuela. Supermarkets have become flashpoints across Venezuela, one of the world's most violent countries. More than 10 lootings occur every day now, according to the Venezuelan Observatory of Violence, and are increasing in the usually more insulated capital. I wrote about this, just to finish off, Venezuela's angry streets are arguably a bigger threat for Nicolas Maduro than the political opposition. I think that's right as well. I wrote about the yen being 9 August 2015 for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. I said then oil-based economies are going to contract, currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed, and Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. Kapuscinski said if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. I said the revolution is only just beginning. Put up a photograph of Nicolas Maduro that he posted on June 12th. Oman sold $1 billion of 5-year notes at a yield of 245 basis points over the benchmark mid-swap rate, and $1.5 billion of 10-year bonds at a spread of 320 basis points. The deficit for Oman is forecast at 19.7% of GDP this year, compared to 20.4% in 2015. I like this photograph of a migrant sitting on his bed at an immigration centre in the Sicilian town of Caltagirone, Italy. Trade in East Africa worth celebrating, says The Economist, talking about the EAC, saying it's the most integrated trading bloc on the continent. Many things boost trade, from growth to international deals. The researchers use some fancy modelling to pick out the effect of the EAC. You find that bilateral trade between member countries was a whopping 213% higher in 2011 than it would otherwise have been. National economies are small at market exchange rates. The combined GDP of the EAC, home to 170 million people, is less than New Zealand's. Oscar Pistorius is to appear before Pretoria magistrates on August. He is set to appear before the magistrates for his sentencing. Former South African athlete to find out this week how long he is to spend in prison for murdering his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. I put up a photograph of her. And really, I think he needs to be inside. South African all share up 4.89% this year. Dollar rand, which had a torrid session on Friday, put up a 6-month chart. That's softening up as well as the world de-risks. Egyptian EGX30 up 9.2% year to date. Nigerian all share down 4.92% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 12.04% year to date. Since 2005, Zimbabwe's trade deficit has widened from an average of $400 million to $2.5 billion. In 2015, the country imported $5.5 billion worth of goods, but only exported $2.5 billion. The result of running such a large deficit for so many years is the country is running out of paper money. Mozambique paid $35 million for VTB shipyard loan at 7% in upfront arrangement fees, which is pretty damn high. Fees are several times what some bankers say is typically paid on such deals. Uganda, army officers arrested over plot against President. Ladislas Fauzi, a lawyer for Besigye, said the treason allegations against Kabaziguruka and the army officers are staged and managed in an effort to keep Besigye in jail. Their interest is Besigye, he said, referring to the state. There is nothing treasonable he has done. Financial Times is talking about how Kenyan opposition threatens to escalate political protests. A wave of protests across Kenya's big cities is threatening to plunge one of Africa's best performing economies into political crises as the country gears up for elections next year. The opposition-led demonstrations, which have left at least 5 people dead, scores injured amid allegations of police brutality, are ostensibly about demands for an overhaul of the tainted electoral commission. But analysts say the mounting crisis is exposing toxic power battles among the power elite ahead of 2017 polls. Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister and leader of the opposition Coalition for Reforms and Democracy, told the FT that Kenya was facing a major national crisis because President Uhuru Kenyatta and he could not agree on a process of reforming the Electoral Commission. There's no bigger agenda for this country than this, because elections have been reduced to a kind of show. We're prepared to do everything using peaceful means to fix the electoral system. Monu Zhao, a Kenyan governance expert, believes the crisis is about much more than the Electoral Commission. This is a power game, he said. Raila wants power again, and his colleagues in government want to remain in power. The people have been left out of the mixture. Mr. Odinga said CORD would escalate its month-long protest campaign across the country. They, the government, hope we're going to tire and give up, but we're prepared for the long haul, he said. CORD is hopelessly divided and has no political program, so Odinga's only realistic option is to take to the streets, said Cedric Barnes, an analyst at the International Crisis Group. The more CORD feels cornered, the more the leadership feels that it is divided, the more it will resort to this kind of protest politics. The crisis is definitely containable, Mr. Barnes said. The point is how it's contained. If the hardliners prevail and they do it the wrong way, then there are lots of questions to be asked, because there are plenty of grievances at the bottom of society and in marginalized regions. I think he's making an important point. In a statement on Friday, CORD said its programs for demonstration are still in place for Monday and Thursday next week. President Kenyatta said on Friday he would not directly participate in the talks himself, even as legislators from his ruling coalition hold dialogue with CORD. I have no business sitting down with you, CORD, he said. However, Raila Odinga then called off the anti-IEBC demos, allowing Uhuru 48 hours. I wrote about this on the 6th of June when I said street protests will hurt 6% growth forecast. I quoted Virilio, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form, not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. And it's working for Reeva. Diageo's Kenyan subsidiary appoints Cowan as managing director to replace Charles, good friend, shame to see him going. During Mr. Ireland's time, EABL has become one of the best performing markets in Diageo, the fastest growing market for Guinness. EABL is up 11.355% this year. The link for the share price data is there on Rich Wrap-Ups. Safaricom closed out the week at a record closing high. That's up 11.963% this year. Have a look at the interview I did with Bob. Williamson Tea reported full year profit after tax surged 424%. Turnover up 30.7%. Profit before tax up 428%. Earnings per share up 439%. A dividend of 20 shillings a share, which is worth 10.98% of the current share price. They're always rather cautious in their commentary, cropping patterns, and therefore prices were erratic through the year. Low supply initially forced prices up before giving way to extremely favourable conditions. Supply surged and prices crashed. The group honoured long-term contract commitments to partially miss out on the initial strength of the market and increase in crop of 19%. Plenty of cash on the balance sheet. Price earnings ratio of 4.51. It's a very, very cheap share. Captorio Tea. Full year profit after tax up 1,128%. Turnover up 12.583%. Earnings per share up 1,129%. Dividend of 6 shillings a share. Basically, same story. This P is even cheaper, 2.78. Longhorn Kenya has made a cautionary announcement. They're buying 74% of Law Africa Publishing. Britain has also made a public announcement. Plum LLP is to acquire 23.34% stake in Britain. This will mean that Plum, together with associated persons and related companies, will hold 38.54% of Britain. Kenya shilling at 101.24. Nairobi all share up 0.87% this year. NSE 20 down 5.13% this year. Every listed share, if you want to check into anything, look at that link, rich data link. I interviewed Ian Craig, who got the OBE from the Queen a while back, and I remember the quote he said, there will always be a way, there always is. Have a look at the interview I did with him, and congratulations to Ian. Once again, thank you for stopping by.